Hi everyone, I'm Chaz DeSiena, and welcome to Excel at Accounting, where we help you to do accounting better one click and one keystroke at a time. This video is titled Playing with Pivot Tables. And as an accountant for decades, I've used pivot tables hundreds or thousands of times, and they are really essential if you're going to use any kind of Excel to a significant degree. I'm going to share with you some of the things I've learned over the years, and I'm going to give you some very basic things in this video. So I'm going to start with a subledger in Excel, and I'm going to highlight all the data, and I just want to summarize the data. You can insert a pivot table a couple of ways. You can go insert pivot table from table range, or if you use it a lot, you can just create a shortcut. It would be in the shortcuts under from table range and just click on that button and hit OK. And now I have a basic pivot table you want to refresh. And in this case, it's an error because I intentionally left out one of the headers. So just if you get that error, just keep in mind you may have accidentally deleted one of the headers. So now I have the headers in place and I could refresh this pivot table and I can start bringing in data. And notice it has filters for the entire pivot table, columns, rows, and values. I'm going to start with the amount in USD value. And then I'm going to right click in here because I want it in a number format. I prefer the number format over any other format. The comma separator, and I like the negatives in red. And then I can start to bring in various fields. I'm going to bring in this case a division, and I'm going to bring in a customer name, and I'm going to bring in a customer ID. And a couple things to note. One is this field here. If you right click in here, you'll see these value field settings. Sometimes this will default to something other than sum. You might see it come in as count. So if you see something that looks weird, just right click in here, make sure you have the right value field setting. We usually use sum, but there are some other options if you ever need that, and hit OK, and this will give you the sum. Now I'm going to pull in some other fields. I'm going to pull in the account code into the filters, and I'm putting the columns here. I might put in a window. I freeze a pane right there. And I'm going to filter on the first number here so it only brings in the asset. And now I'm going to change this to a format that I'm more comfortable with for what I want, and that's classic pivot table. So again, you're going to right click in the pivot table, go to pivot table options, display, classic pivot table. Okay. And now it's in a format that I prefer. And notice here it gives me some subtotals. You can handle that by right clicking there and getting rid of it. Or if you want the subtotals, you can right click in here and add it back. I prefer not having that. So I'm just going to undo that. And one thing I want to show you also, anywhere in the pivot table, if you want to refresh the data, you can go right click, refresh. But let's say you wanted to change the data source or make sure the data source was correct. You just go to pivot table analysis, change data source, and then you can check to make sure in this case, I know that's to the end of the range I want. But I want to show you one more thing. Let's say you wanted to insert data into here. If you go to the bottom and you start inserting here, you would have to add to the range, which is fine. But I prefer to insert within the pivot table. And so I would just, for example, just show you inserting the rows. And let's say I just copied this down. And then I went back in here and I went to change data source. You'll see that it's picked up all the additional data, all the rows that I just added. But in this case, I'm going to change it back to the way it was without those additional rows. So keep in mind, if I go refresh, or sorry, if I go to change data source, and I do not, and even if I hit OK, it will not refresh. If I change the data range, it will refresh. So just be aware of that. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in another field. I'm going to bring in the year of this activity. And now I have all these blank fields. What do you do with that? So I'm going to show you a couple ways to handle it. One is if you want to do just one column, let's say you want that one repeated, you could right click in here, go to field settings, layout and print, repeat item labels, and it'll repeat these all the way down. But let's say you want to do them all at once. You can just go to design. And by the way, you can click different designs for your colors, and there are some other options. But you can go into design, report layout, and repeat all item labels. And then you can right click in here. If you don't want that one to repeat, go back to field settings, layout and print, and then you can unclick repeat item labels. And now, and for the purposes I want, I'm going to remove the year. And now this is more or less a format that I want in this case. So, and what I want to do from here, I actually want to remove this subtotal. And now I have it in a format that I can do a lookup on. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to move the division to the bottom. And then I'm going to remove, once again, I have to unclick this. And now it's in the format I want by customer name, customer ID, and the division. And now I can do various formulas. I can look this up against the ledger to see if they tie out. But just be aware of one thing here. If you hit like plus and go into the cell, whether it be a formula, it's going to lock in that cell. So if I copy that down, it's not going to keep this. It's going to keep the same row and column because it's actually locked into this get pivot data fields. So the easiest thing to do here is just go manually plus F5, and then you can just copy that down, and then it'll give you that data, and you can do whatever formulas you want. Hope this helps. Until next time, take care.